Bloodborne was my introduction to the Soulsborne series, and as is standard with losing your soul's virginity, it absolutely whooped my ass. After 2 hours of dying over and over to common mobs and this big bastard, I threw in the towel and said, frick the shrimp, this game's too hard. Looking back at my past self, my problem was one of carelessness. I hadn't yet learned the Dark Souls dance, the back and forth you were supposed to have with the enemy. I didn't understand the importance of spacing, stamina management, and healing. I especially want to highlight healing as I believe that it's an invaluable yet often overlooked facet of Souls combat. In my opinion, the worth of the Soulsborne healing system can be divided into two. The first half lies in the time it takes to heal. Popping an Estus or Moongrass or Blood Vial immediately after getting hit will consistently result in getting hit again. As such, healing becomes an extension of combat itself. Choosing the right time to heal is just as important as choosing the right time to attack, block, or dodge. The second half lies in the number of healing items allocated to the player. The sum of healing items in a player's inventory acts as a sort of life system, becoming the number of mistakes a player can make before reaching the next checkpoint. With this in mind, I'll be exploring how healing has changed throughout the Soulsborne series, from its inception in Demon Souls all the way to Dark Souls 3. I would argue that the worth of a Souls game can in large parts be measured by the worth of its healing system. As such, I want to determine which game does this best, and if possible, determine if it can be improved upon. Demon Souls. What hasn't been said about it already? It's the game that started it all. Despite all the dumb shit that pervades this game, it's actually stupid how many things Miyazaki and the boys got right on their first go at the formula. The game being expected to be a complete failure granted Miyazaki's crew the creative freedom to implement so many bizarre yet innovative features, a lot of which becoming staples of the series. The unconventional multiplayer and messaging system being only a few examples. With that being said, it's interesting to note Demon Souls' healing system, which is the most standard out of the whole series. Moongrass is simply an item which players collect around the world. Different tiers of grass can be looted from defeated enemies, found on dead adventurers, or bought from merchants. I actually don't have that much to say about the healing items per se. I think the different tiers of Moongrass serve only in unnecessarily cluttering the player's item menu. It's undeniable that Dark Souls' streamlined system did this much better. My interest lies more in the way Moongrass is obtained and distributed. Firstly, the fact that Moongrass is most commonly obtained by defeating enemies addresses a problem which every subsequent Souls game fails to even bother trying to solve: the run back to bosses. Before we go on, I first want to make my stance on boss runbacks clear. I don't think any player should be faulted for beelining it straight to the boss after dying one too many times. They're simply finding cracks in the game's design to most efficiently beat it. With that being said, I firmly believe that the game was meant to be played without being able to run past every single enemy. If you ask me, common enemies act as an extension of the boss fight itself. They chip away at your healing items and test if you have enough to face the boss himself. Ideally, enemy AI would be advanced enough to force the players to fight them. The game should test your fighting abilities rather than your fleeing abilities. Since Demon Souls AI is kinda brain dead, however, the game had to get creative with its preventative measures. By having enemies drop Moongrass, the game disincentivizes players sprinting past the game's content since they'd be skipping over essential healing items. And in Boletaria, this works perfectly. The problem comes with the way Demon Souls sets up its levels. For those who haven't played, the game is split into 5 different levels linked through a hub world called the Nexus. Now what's cool about these levels is that they're all essentially different biomes with their own unique fauna, environment, and lootable items. For example, Stonefang Tunnel is populated with horribly disfigured miners and molten insects. It's also the go-to place to find precious ores used to upgrade melee weapons. Alternatively, the Tower of Latria and its spooky squid boys ensure that players will find plenty of items which are invaluable to sorcerer builds. Much to the game's detriment, Moongrass also adheres to these rules. For whatever stupid, mind-boggling reason, the only place to consistently find the stuff is in Boletaria Castle, which is the first level. This opens up a whole treasure trove of problems. Firstly, it undermines the whole point of having lootable healing items in the first place since players are free to run past all enemies for 80% of the game. Second, it's plain boring. You know what isn't fun? Running out of grass while exploring the Valley of Defilement and having to travel to the Tower Knight's entrance, kill those 2 blue-eyed knights, loot the 4 pieces of Moongrass off their bodies, letting the Dragonfire kill you to respawn them, and doing it all over again. It's terrible artificial game design and leaves a serious blemish on the game's enjoyability. The biggest problem with Demon Souls' healing system, however, lies in the ability to carry unlimited amount of grass in your inventory. Like I said in my intro, the amount of healing items in a player's inventory acts like a life system. As such, granting players infinite healing items essentially grants them infinite lives. The tension of choosing the right time to heal is still here, of course, but the tension of not knowing if you're going to make it to the next checkpoint with enough healing items is nowhere to be seen. As such, Demon Souls' healing system robs players of an essential part of the Souls experience. I'll just say it now. Dark Souls' revamped healing system is my favorite in the whole series thanks to the brilliance of the Estus system. Rather than having a limitless amount of healing items, Dark Souls introduces the Estus Flask, a set amount of healing items that recharge when you reach a bonfire. In so doing, the amount of Estus in a player's inventory becomes the number of mistakes they're allowed to make before reaching the next bonfire, the life system I keep going on about. On top of that, the game introduces a new item called Humanity, which, when consumed, returns, well, your humanity. This unlocks the ability to kindle bonfires, which doubles the amount of Estus in your inventory to 10 whenever you rest at that specific bonfire. Once a player acquires the right of kindling by defeating the game's hardest boss, bonfires can be kindled twice at the cost of 2 humanities, allotting 15 flasks. This system is genius because it provides something that people have been begging for in these types of games for a long time: difficulty options. Its brilliance lies in the way it's so seamlessly integrated. The difficulty is built in rather than being an option you select at the beginning of the game. What I mean by this is that kindling acts as a built-in difficulty option. 5 is the standard way to play, 10 is easy, and 15 is for Ornstein and Smo. What's so great about this approach is that developers can build levels around a set number of healing items, in this case being 5 Estus, which ensures a tight design, while simultaneously accounting for struggling players. If a player is having a tough time, they can simply give themselves extra Estus. This in no way robs the experienced player of having an equally tough time with 5 Estus. At this point you might be thinking, why would 5 Estus be the standard way to play? Well, I have a few reasons for thinking this. Firstly, excluding the bonfire in Firelink Shrine and Anne Orlando, every bonfire provides 5 Estus charges. It's their base form, their standard form. Moreover, certain bonfires allotting 10 Estus charges actually adds to this argument. It was a conscious decision made by From Software to give players extra Estus when facing an extra hard level or boss. A few levels are built around players having 10 Estus charges, but most are built around having 5. Second, if players want to kindle their bonfire and make their lives easier, they have to go out of their way to do so. It's quite the convoluted process, and I've stumbled upon quite a few people who only learned of the mechanic after beating the game. In my opinion, this is why that feeling of relief washing over you as you finally find a bonfire is the strongest in Dark Souls 1. The game accounts for both new and experienced players with absolutely zero compromise. If I could describe this game's healing system in one word, it would be cluttered. There are just too many healing items for absolutely no reason. So let's go through them all, shall we? There's the Estus, of course, Human Effigies, Divine Blessings, Elizabeth Mushrooms, Monastery Charms, Rouge Waters, Crimson Waters, Dried Roots, and most importantly, Healing Gems, which come in 3 different flavors: Regular, Radiant, and Old Radiant. Notice how I said Healing Gems are important rather than, good. That's because I would argue that Dark Souls 2's reputation as being the black sheep of the franchise can largely be attributed to these gems. Before going into why, I first want to rationalize why they were implemented in the first place. To a certain extent, I could see what they were trying to accomplish when taking the changes made to the Estus Flask into consideration. One of the first things players are likely to notice when booting up Dark Souls 2 is the Bearer of the Curse taking his sweet ass time sipping on his Sunny D. This is contrasted by the Healing Gem, which sacrifices the slow yet near instantaneous healing of the Estus for maneuverability. This is balanced by the fact that Healing Gems restore HP at a gradual rate. At first glance, this would make Dark Souls 2's healing system more nuanced than the one in Dark Souls 1. The game seemingly demands different input from the players depending on the situation. When facing a fast enemy, for example, players are encouraged to use healing gems to heal on the move, while hard-hitting slow enemies encourage the use of Estus. In this sense, the healing system in Dark Souls 2 can be compared to From's latest game, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. In Sekiro, enemies will occasionally perform a perilous attack which demands a different input from simply blocking. For example, enemies with swords will generally demand that players either jump over a sweeping attack or perform a Mickey counter to ward off a thrusting attack. The difference between Sekiro and Dark Souls 2 is that Sekiro punishes the shit out of players for performing the wrong action. Did you jump instead of performing a Mickey counter? Well, have fun getting impaled by a 12-foot samurai sword. Dark Souls 2 simply does not punish players for using improper inputs. On the contrary, spamming healing gems is actually encouraged. Players can pop one or two if they plan on taking heavy damage or use them to counteract status elements that drain your health. Put simply, there's never a wrong time to use healing gems. This is all made possible by the nonsensical decision to mirror the broken healing system from Demon Souls, and somehow make it worse. Whereas farming Moongrass took quite a bit of time and buying them cost a pretty penny, healing gems cost next to nothing if you're buying from the Hag and Majula. To put this into perspective, I was able to buy over 50 gems using the souls I got from defeating the last giant, the game's first boss. After that, I spent every excess soul left in my inventory after leveling up on healing gems for the rest of my playthrough. I never once ran out of healing gems in my whole 40-hour playthrough. This completely erases any tension a player might have on their way to the next checkpoint. Never once did I have that oh shit moment when getting hit, knowing that I'll never get that health back until the next bonfire. This approach completely destroys the carefully balanced healing system from Dark Souls 1. Bloodborne is my favorite game in the entire series because it embodies the tough but fair motto the series is known for better than any other Souls game. It mainly achieves this by removing all the cheap-ass bullshit from all the other games. Things like falling off the map because walking surfaces can't be trusted, or banging your weapon against the wall over and over again when fighting in constrained environments are nowhere to be seen in this game. Bloodborne's difficulty is entirely based on the player's ability to learn and master enemy patterns rather than adapting to dated controls or wonky hitboxes. To put it in another way, Bloodborne doesn't waste your time. It's most definitely a streamlined Souls experience. As far as the healing system is concerned, it kind of achieves this. For one, Bloodborne abandons the quantity over quality approach from Dark Souls 2 for a single, unupgradable healing item, the Blood Vial. In and of itself, Blood Vials work fantastically in this type of game. Their brief animation matches the game's speed perfectly. What I don't understand, however, is why, once again, From Software decided to go back to Demon Souls' broken healing system. Like in Demon Souls, farming is the best way to obtain more blood vials, only in Bloodborne, it's even less intuitive, somehow. To illustrate my point, let's say you ran out of blood vials in Old Yarnum and decide to return to Central Yarnum to farm these two big dudes. Well, you can't warp there, that would be too simple. You first have to warp to the Dream, suffer through the game's atrocious load times, warp from the Dream to Central Yarnum, go through another loading screen, and boom, you're there. After killing the two grumpy old trolls, you can't just rest at a lantern to respawn them like you can in Dark Souls. No. That would be much too simple. Instead, you have to warp back to the Dream, and then from there warp to Central Yarnum once again. Only then can you resume your farming. It's mind-boggling how a game so hell-bent on avoiding wasting players' time could overlook something like this. Even the game limiting the number of blood vials in your inventory to 20 is undermined by the rally system. As an aside, I absolutely love the rally system. These games are known for punishing the greedy, and the rally system is the perfect way to translate this to a faster game like Bloodborne. It rewards aggressive play, but punishes eager players who want to recover every single health point lost by recklessly spamming R1. It's just unfortunate that it takes away from the tension found in the limited amount of healing items, since a player can potentially recover all of their HP in every encounter without using a single blood vial. This is made worse by the fact that 20 blood vials is simply too generous a number. The levels in Bloodborne are about the same length as the ones in Dark Souls 1, and the enemies are just as dangerous, yet you have 4 times the amount of healing items in Bloodborne. What makes this even worse is that looted blood vials are transferred directly to your inventory rather than your stash inside the Dream, ensuring that it's nearly impossible to run out of this stuff. Contrary to most of its other additions, Bloodborne's healing system leaves something to be desired. It robs players of the tension found in Dark Souls' healing system, all the while wasting their time, despite streamlining so many of its other additions. Seeing searches for the best farming areas in Bloodborne while doing research for this video was super depressing, and it's something that I hope I never see for any future From Software game. Thankfully, we return once again to the Estus system in Dark Souls 3, only now with a small twist, the Ashen Estus. In my opinion, this is Dark Souls 3's most interesting addition as it adds an extra layer of decision making to the healing system. A conservative sorcerer build might decide to have a 3:1 Estus to Ashen Estus ratio, whereas a confident pyromancer might have more Ashen Estus than they do Estus. Wow, that's a lot of Estus. It's unfortunate then that this system isn't used to its full potential since melee characters have little use for the the blue stuff. The addition of weapon arts is an admirable though ultimately futile effort in validating the addition since they're relatively useless outside of PvP. By accommodating only a small portion of its player base, the potential of this system is wasted in Dark Souls 3 as far as I'm concerned. Another problem lies in the Estus Shard / Bone Dust system Dark Souls 3 adopts from Dark Souls 2. While the problem of having too many healing items is nowhere near as bad as in Dark Souls 2, I would still argue that the system in Dark Souls 3 is at least unbalanced. This is an inherent problem when having essential upgrade materials as hidden items. Developers must account for players potentially failing to find some of the material and must thus be generous with the amount given. A player who only fights a third of the shards by the endgame would be completely screwed, so an excessive amount of shards were placed throughout the world to counterbalance this. This is especially detrimental for a game like Dark Souls, whose difficulty is balanced around the limited healing items it grants to the player. This results in a game that becomes progressively easier for thorough players. To illustrate my point, take the difference between the run to Vort, the game's second boss, and the run to Aldrich, one of the later bosses. The trek from the Tower on the Wall bonfire to Vort's arena is brutal. You'll have to fight your way through countless hollows, hollow knights, hollow assassins, starved hounds, some Lothric knights, a winged knight, and a pus of man enemy, which is an absolute bastard in the early game. Then look at the run to Aldrich, which has 5 silver knights, a few deacons, and a deep accursed. Not only is the run to Vort much harder than the run to Aldrich, but the maximum amount of Estus a player could have during the former is more than half that of the latter. The developers tried to accommodate the struggling players, but ended up creating an incredibly unsatisfying experience for meticulous players as a result. Reckless behavior simply isn't punished enough in the late game since the player has amassed so many safety nets by then. This is why I love the healing system in Dark Souls 1 so much. It accounts for both types of players without any compromise. The reason why the run to Vort's arena is so perfectly brutal is because the level was built with a specific amount of Estus in mind. On the other hand, players could have anywhere from 3 to 11 Estus charges during the run to Aldrich. There's something to be said about From Software's tendency to constantly tinker with their formula. It's admirable that they seem to never be satisfied with a finished product, and it's my hope that they learn to apply their additions in the right way rather than abandoning them altogether. Despite my belief that Dark Souls 1's healing system is the best in the entire series, I still think that there's value in the additions found in the later entries. It's a question of refinement and application rather than new inclusions being inherently bad. Even though I absolutely despise the addition of healing gems in 2, I still like the idea on paper. Same goes for the Ashen Estus flask. With further refinement, I can absolutely see the two being successfully integrated into Dark Souls 1's kindling system. There's so many ways to accomplish this. Significantly cut down on the amount of healing gems handed to the player, or make merchants have a finite amount in their inventory. This would disincentivize spam while further diversifying combat. On the other hand, you could allow players to allot Estus and Ashen Estus in the kindling system and avoid the trap of inflating Estus flask numbers. It's my hope that the risks From Software take when innovating won't go to waste.